Hello and welcome to BrandSquare Live. My name is Bruce Miller and I am the Vice President of Product Development for SGK. Today we're going to talk about how brand owners can develop an infrastructure to win on the digital shelf. Now, when we say digital shelf, we're referring to the selling of consumer products on retail e-commerce sites. And we think it's important to think in terms of the physical and digital shelves, that your products are being displayed in two different types of stores, and that it's important that they're displayed in a manner that matches your sales strategy and that you control. Most brand owners have put a lot of effort into how their products are presented on the physical shelf, from the design of the pack to coordinating with retailers to ensure their products are properly displayed. But most brands haven't put that same level of effort yet into the digital space, but it's becoming increasingly important that they do so as e-commerce becomes an important component of their overall growth strategy. So I'm going to start out today with a number that I think is significant. It's 1%. The GMA published a report last year that suggested that online sales for CPG products were at about 1% of overall sales. And when we talked to our clients, we found that that number is probably about right. Now, we think that's significant because it puts the topic on the radar screen for the first time. It's become important enough that you need to start thinking about how you're going to feed that pipeline and scale it up. That 1% number is a milestone that's causing brand owners to realize the potential of e-commerce sales, from the marketing organization all the way up to the CEO. Now, of course, consumer products have been sold online for nearly 20 years, but at volumes that were so low, it simply didn't merit much attention. So you have this new shelf to stock, the digital shelf, but it's not just stocked with product, it's stocked with images and product information. Now, all brand owners have an existing infrastructure to supply this content, but it's often something that just grew over the years in an organic or unplanned way. Those first generation workflows often aren't going to meet your future needs, and they're typically somewhat labor intensive and they don't scale very well. And scaling is important because last year when the GMA came up with that 1% number, they also estimated that sales would hit about 5% by 2018, only 3 years away, and 10% sometime shortly after that. So you need an infrastructure that meets your needs today, but is something that can scale up much larger to meet the upcoming needs over the next decade. So what to do about that? That's what we're here to talk about today. So let's get started on our 7 steps. The first one is to take ownership. Now, that might sound a bit trivial or obvious, but many brand owners don't have clear ownership and governance on this topic. We find that ownership is often distributed amongst multiple groups, from marketing to sales to supply chain. Additionally, many brand owners have ceded some of the decision-making around this topic to third-party vendors or retailers who might not have the best interest or the strategy of the brand in mind. The result is often chaotic, somewhat labor-intensive, and can have duplicate spends with inconsistent results. So it's foundational, I think, that you assign ownership within your organization so that you can start making decisions about your online content strategy. So once you've established ownership, the first question to ask is, how are we going to produce content in a consistent way? You need to have a methodology and an approach. We think the best approach here is to use computer-generated imaging, or CGI, to create product imagery directly from the production artwork for the package. Now, this has several advantages. First, it ensures that your online images are an exact match to your printed product. This ensures that consumers can have the same information and same experience with your product, whether they're online or in-store. Secondly, it can be much faster than traditional product photography. CGI images can be produced in line with the pre-press process and delivered back to the business at the same time as the print deliverables. This can literally cut weeks off of your production cycles. It can also reduce your cost of ownership because now it can become an automatic deliverable that doesn't require much management on your part. You no longer have to manage the process of collecting printed samples and running them through a photographic process. Lastly, it can ensure absolute consistency in your product. Using CGI technology, we're working in a virtual studio environment where we have absolute consistency over lighting, color, and product angles. So it's important to think of your product lines as belonging to a family, and that you will have a more impressive presentation of that family if the color, lighting, and other variables are consistent over time. The other thing that you want to consider at this stage is the frequency of image creation. Do you want new images created each time that there's an artwork revision, or at some lower frequency? We've seen a shift in this philosophy with several of our clients over the past year or two. In the past, many brand owners took the approach of producing e-commerce deliverables at a fairly low frequency. This philosophy was often driven by the cost and time of producing those deliverables, along with the complexities of delivering updated content into the supply chain. It may have also been driven by the fact that it just wasn't that important, but as we discussed earlier today, it's important now. So it's worthwhile to consider the frequency at which you produce new content. We've had a few clients move to a one-to-one strategy moving forward, where they're producing new content for each new artwork. And there are several reasons that they're moving this way. One is that they're trying to achieve absolute accuracy in their content, that what the consumer sees online matches what the consumer receives when the product is delivered. This is something that not only is a growing consumer expectation here in North America, but it's the law in Europe, where Regulation EU 1169 mandates that consumer information be accurate. It's also important from a marketing standpoint. As marketers iterate their on-pack messaging, they're not getting maximum value out of that messaging if it doesn't appear online as well. Again, this wasn't that important in the past when e-commerce volumes were so low, but you need to ask yourself if you can afford to leave such an important and growing segment out of your marketing cycles. So once you've established how you're going to produce your content, now you need to think about what content you want to have produced for each product. And I would say that there's several points to consider here. First, you want to start thinking about this as a set, not just a single image. In the past, we've typically or often produced a single image for a product, but increasingly, consumers expect more views and more information. And we recommend developing a standard set of deliverables that includes two categories of images. One would be the traditional marketing shots that are like product photography, used to provide consumers with a feel for what the product looks like and confirm that what they're buying is what they think it is. The second category serves more of a functional purpose. So these functional images typically are flat crops of each panel of the product. They allow consumers to view and read the content of the package at the same level of information as if they were in a physical store. So a common set of deliverables would be one or more marketing shots, perhaps at different angles, along with an image of each product, of each panel rather. And we have some customers now that are producing crops of the nutritional panel and ingredient list as well. And we have found that you need to establish these standards based on the structure type, as you'll want to have different structures represented in different ways. So for instance, a carton often looks best when presented at a slight downward angle with the product slightly rotated. Now, if you contrast that with something like a can or a bag, it looks best if simply shot straight on, that the rotated angle just obviously doesn't work for something that's a cylinder like a can. That can be true for bags as well. So for functional images, a carton is pretty simple in that you'll simply want a crop of all 6 sides of the package so the consumer can load any one of those 6 images and view it much closer to read the content on that image. But for something like a can, what we have found is best is simply to take the artwork and just render it out flat. So you're giving the consumer an image that basically just contains everything that's printed on the pack, so they can load that without having to worry about trying to rotate it or viewing it from different angles on a cylinder. So the best way to collect all of this information is in a style guide. We often help our clients with this by producing a document that shows samples of the deliverables for each structure type. This document is then used by the brand owner to confirm their expectations for production and for organizational alignment as well. And this provides clear direction for all parties involved. Next on our step parade is specifications. So what specs should you produce to? And the challenge here is that you've got multiple users of your content and they all want something slightly different. So our approach is to use a canonical philosophy. And the idea of a canonical format is that it's a master format from which you can produce versions in the specification that's required for each end user. In other words, it has the capacity to handle the unique requirements of many users, although the data will still need to be converted. So that conversion ideally should be machine-based and should be seamless between you and your users. It could occur as the data leaves your infrastructure or at the point of arrival at your end user. Ultimately, we think that the industry needs to settle on a common specification for this content. Fortunately, we have an industry organization that's done just that, and that's the GS1. For those of you not familiar with the GS1, it's a global organization that sets standards and specifications for manufacturers and retailers to exchange information. And they have such a specification. It's called the Product Image Specification Standard. And it's the best thing we have to help brand owners and retailers agree on specifications for product images. It specifies image attributes such as file format, file naming. It actually has a very robust file naming standard, and product angles and many other specifications. This spec is being actively maintained by the GS1, and they revised it actually just this past fall. So that documents the best thing that we have, we think, to keep the industry aligned, and we strongly recommend that brand owners use that as the foundation for you developing out your own image specifications. I would also urge brand owners to consider participating in the GS1 if you're not already doing so. We'll be talking more about the GS1 in a few moments, and I'm going to have a link to this document that I'm referring to at the end of our session today. One more thought on specifications that isn't actually included in the GS1 spec. When your images go out into the consumer space, they're going to be displayed on a variety of devices, iPhones, iPads, Android devices, and monitors from many different vendors, none of which you have control over. So this is very different from a print environment where you have a high degree of control over the reproduction process. So how will you know that your images are being displayed on a consumer screen with color accuracy? Well, the short answer is that you don't. But that doesn't mean that you can't take action to provide the best results possible, given the limitations. And the way that's done is by preparing images in a color space that most closely matches a computer monitor. And we can do this by using an industry standard color space called sRGB. Now, some people familiar with this topic might disagree with this and suggest a color space with a broader gamut, such as Adobe RGB. But sRGB is a spec that almost all computer monitors are built to, including all the iDevices. So you'll get the greatest accuracy with that spec because it's designed around the color limitations of consumer monitors. Next, let's talk about product attributes. Now, so far, much of our discussion has focused on images but it's important to consider product information, which is often referred to as product attributes. So product attributes are everything about the product that might be of interest to a consumer. So for instance, the net weight, allergen statements, distribution statement, nutritional claims, and the entire nutrition facts panel are all product attributes. Since this information is all printed on your packaging, the consumer will automatically have access to this information simply by viewing the marketing or functional images that you're supplying. Now, this has been adequate up till now, but many brand owners are realizing that providing information buried inside of an image isn't as dynamic as what's needed or expected in a data-rich world. So breaking those product attributes off of your images and providing them as text data opens up a new world of possibilities. First, the data becomes searchable, both by search engines and theoretically within a retail site. It also enables the retailer to provide additional functionality, such as side-by-side product comparisons, or do things such as highlight information based on consumer preferences. So, for instance, a consumer might be able to configure their account in such a way that it highlights products that best fit their dietary needs. And there are many other things that could be done with that as well. The point is, consumers want that data, and it could provide you with a competitive advantage if you supply a rich set of data of product attributes into the supply chain. So, how do you do that? And the challenge here is that many brand owners don't have an accurate record of what's actually printed on the pack. Oftentimes, the PDF that we supply back to them is their most accurate record. So one option is to pull that information directly off your packaging artwork. Some people actually rekey the data from a final printed pack, which is labor intensive and somewhat prone to error. Another option that we're doing for some of our clients now is to export the product attributes text directly off of the final approved artwork. This ensures a high degree of integrity between what's printed on your pack and what's displayed to a consumer. But I would argue that an even better way to accomplish this is to organize your data upstream of the artwork production process into a copy management system or a product information management system, or PIM, and get all that copy approved before it's released to artwork production. This positions you then to feed both processes, print and e-commerce, from a single source, ensuring integrity and accuracy. So next on our list is distribution. Now, this is probably the biggest challenge, but the most significant step of everything that we're talking about today. So far we've talked about the production of content, but how will you distribute this content out to your supply chain? There's two general methodologies in use today. In the first method, the brand owner maintains the set of content directly with the retailer. Typically, this is through a portal that's part of the retailer's infrastructure. This works, but it can be very labor intensive as it often requires manual work, and it's retailer specific, so each product update requires interaction with multiple portals. Another, more common method is to use a third-party aggregator for distribution. In this case, the brand owner sends or uploads content to a third-party aggregator, which is then accessible through a website for all supply chain partners. Now, the challenge with this method is that it creates a one-to-many or many-to-one problem. If each brand owner and each retailer have their own preferred aggregator and they don't match, then you've got an incompatibility between trading partners. Additionally, the upload and download cycle may prove to be a cumbersome impediment for frequent revisions and updates. So an emerging method that we believe is more sustainable is to implement synchronization between trading partners. So in this scenario, the brand owner aggregates all consumer-facing content into a single system. This category of system is sometimes called Master Data Management, or MDM, or more commonly, Product Information Management, or PIM or PIM. Once the brand owner has this information centralized within their own control, then they're positioned to synchronize this data out to retailers as needed. The advantages of the synchronization methodology is that once it's implemented, it scales very well and it eliminates most of the labor and effort to move this data between trading partners. It's a machine-to-machine connection that ensures everyone is always up to date. Now, it's still an emerging concept, but it could be implemented directly with a brand owner and retailers syncing their systems directly to each other. But it could also be done through a synchronization network. Here again, the GS1 has an industry-level solution in something called the GDSN, or Global Data Synchronization Network. The GDSN was originally designed to transfer warehouse supply chain data, but it's now capable of much more, including consumer-facing product content. And we think it's a good solution as it's a highly automated industry standard and it's very scalable. Think of it as the internet for product data. So to summarize on this topic, there's two acronyms that you need to remember: PIM for Product Information Management, and GDSN for the Global Data Synchronization Network, which is sponsored by the GS1. I would encourage all of you to investigate both of these technologies if you haven't already done so. Okay, we're winding down here to our last step, and this one is about shelf governance. Now, most brands have some process in place to ensure their products are displayed on physical shelves in a manner that's in line with their expectations. What we see on the digital shelf is a lot of misalignment. As you move from online retailer to online retailer, you're likely to find very inconsistent presentation of your brands with content that's sometimes out of date. So everything that we've talked about here today so far has been about how to develop, produce, and deliver e-commerce content that's consistent to retailers. But that's all for naught if the data isn't being used. So I don't have a prescriptive solution on this one, but I would encourage you to think about this topic as you build out your roadmap in your e-commerce strategy. You're going to need to duplicate the shelf governance that you currently have on the physical shelf in the digital shelf in the future. So as we review our 7 steps here, I would say that there are 2 main themes that emerge. The first one is about control. So from ownership to delivery to governance, you as a brand owner need to have control over this content to ensure that your brands are being represented properly on the digital shelf. The second theme is about systemization. A casual ad hoc process may have worked back when you were under 1% and under the radar, but you need something that's going to be highly scalable to meet your future needs at a reasonable cost. By systematizing this process, you can transform it from a high labor, high time process with sometimes inconsistent deliverables to one that's highly automated with highly consistent results. And the last screen I'm going to leave you with here today is a link to those GS1 specs that I talked about earlier. As I mentioned, those specs were just revised here back in October of this year. We've used these specs with many of our clients, and I think it's a great starting point. And again, I think it's critical because the way that the industry is going to succeed, I think, on this topic is by coordinating and working together. And this spec is a good way to get started with that. So that's our presentation. I can take questions now. So the first question is, how do I connect to the GS1 system that you talked about? Yeah, so the GDSN network is actually supported by approximately 35 for-profit vendors called certified data pools. And those 35, it's approximately 35 certified data pools, they actually maintain all of the content in that network. You contract with one of those 35 data pools, and then you can exchange, you connect your system to theirs, and then they then synchronize your data out to anybody else who's subscribed to that network. And essentially the way that it works is the 35 data pools all talk to each other. And one of the major certified data pools in the world, and the dominant one in North America, is an organization called One World Sync. So that's someone who could get you connected to the GDSN. And there, like I said, there are other vendors as well. So on the GDSN, what if I have a customer that doesn't use it? Yeah, if they, I think you're going to have a strategy that encompasses multiple delivery points, at least for a period of time. That this GDSN network is continuing to grow in popularity, and in the meantime, if you have a retailer that doesn't use that system, then you're going to have to use whatever's available, such as the online portal that we talked about earlier. But again, I think you want to be thinking longer term about where you end up further in the future, and that's the method that we would recommend. The next question is, can I provide 3D rotatable images for e-commerce? And yes, we can. That was actually added to that GS1 spec sometime last year. So they have a specification on how we do that. One of the challenges on that topic is there's many different technologies that a retailer or a website owner might use to make a product rotate. And fortunately, I was glad to see it included in the GS1 spec last year, because it defines a method for doing that uses just straight HTML, which means that it will work on an iPhone or virtually any type of browser. And that technology, essentially the way we make that work is we produce approximately 24 different views of the product, and we deliver all 24 as a bundle. And then the website owner takes those 24 images and they kind of stitch them together so that as the user moves their mouse over the image, it loads those individual images to give you the feel that the product is actually being rotated. Any other questions? I'll leave you here at the end then with my email address, which is brucemiller@sgk.com. Please feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to chat on this topic with you. Thank you. So if we don't have any more questions, I think that's going to be it then. So thanks to everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it.